Hi everybody, welcome to another Scratch program tutorial. My name is Russell and today we're going to be making another video game. So we are going to be making a maze video game here and I will show you how it works. Here's the completed program. So I'm going to hit the green flag to start it. So now we have three sprites. We have our cat, we have our maze, and we have this cake over here. And how this works is that you use the mouse, you touch the cat, and then you can use the mouse to just move the cat. You don't have to click or drag. As soon as the mouse touches the cat, he comes along for the ride. You drag him through the maze. If he hits the side of the maze, he'll go right back to the beginning. So the idea is to get him all the way through the maze and then to the end. And then you can make a display message, good job. You can use a timer. We're not going to do a timer today, but you could put in a timer. You can also make the cat bigger or smaller depending on the difficulty you'd like to have. So a smaller cat is going to make it a little bit easier. You can also make the tunnel bigger or smaller. So let's take a peek inside before we get started. Alright, so we're going to click See Inside. And this is the program right here. Not too bad. So the cat has just this script. And then we'll go down here to the maze. The maze is a very small script. Just when started, go to the center. And the cake, also very small. We're just shrinking him and we're telling him to go to one spot. So this is a pretty easy program for the most part. It's probably one of the easier video games that you can make in Scratch. So let's get started. Okay, we are going to start a new program. So here we're going to go to File, New, and that'll bring you to a fresh page. Or you may be on the main Scratch screen. In which case, if you are on this screen, which most of your students will be on, you can click Create. When I start the classes, I usually have the students either on that page or on this page. It's a little bit safer to have it on this page because if you haven't tested it on each laptop, you never know if you're going to require a plugin download, and doing things like that really kills your time when you're in a program. So we'll start with our cat sprite. Let's get this program going. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the events block over here in the blocks palette. And we're going to do when the green flag is clicked. So this is our pretty much default start button in Scratch. This just tells the program to do something whenever this green flag is clicked. So the second thing we're going to do is change the size of our sprite. He's too big to go through the maze now. So we have to imagine that the maze is going to be this entire screen right here. So let's go to Looks and find Set Size to, and we're going to change it to 50%. Test it. A little bit too big. So let's do 10% and a little bit too small. This will be pretty easy unless if you did the bigger maze, but he's actually too small to see, so that's not very fun. So we're going to do 30%, and that's about right. Perfect, I would say. Okay. The next thing we're going to do while we're in here is the go to front. So the go to front, it may not be necessary, but I recommend it. It just keeps the sprite in the front of the screen. We're going to create our next sprites now, and you'll see when we create the maze, he could wind up behind the maze at some point if the program gets a little glitchy. So this go to front will ensure that he stays in the front of the screen and won't go hiding behind the maze. It shouldn't happen, but sometimes Scratch is a little touchy, so we'll see what happens. And what we're going to do now is create a second sprite. So we're going to create our maze. So down here on your sprites menu, we're going to click the second button, Paint New Sprite. This will bring up a paint interface similar to Microsoft Paint. Now I can see that the whole screen, because this bar is down here, you're not seeing the whole screen. So this is not going to match up perfectly to this. So believe it or not, if you started making the maze, right now it would look great, and then when you put it over here, there's going to be a whole side of it missing. This is kind of a quirky feature with Scratch sometimes. If your browser is zoomed in too much, this will happen. What you can do is zoom out, but even then it's still too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click up here and I'm going to try to zoom out on my browser. There, I zoomed out my browser, everything got a little bit smaller, but now I can see the whole screen. So this is a quirky thing. This is another thing I recommend before you start your Scratch class. When you go to actually open up this page to make sure all the plugins are installed and everything looks refreshed, that you also set the browser to maybe 90%, make it a little bit smaller. That way you don't deal with these things in class, because when you're dealing with these things, it can take up a lot of time. Okay, so what we're going to do is fill this whole screen with color. And I want my maze to be green. So I'm going to fill the whole thing green. So now here's our cat sprite. As you can see, that is why I use the go to front button, because the cat's hidden now. Now, when we run the program, he'll pop up back on top. But if you didn't use that script for the cat, the go to front, he would stay behind the maze. So it's just a tricky thing. Okay, so I am clicked back in the sprite to the maze, and I'm in costumes, which is where we're going to design this costume. So now what we're going to do is we are going to find this button right here, the erase. And you have a little bit of eraser right here. So very little. Okay. What we're going to do is make it a little bit bigger. So this is how big your maze is actually going to be, this size. We're going to use the first two settings. It's kind of temperamental, but you can see it kind of goes in notches. So we're going to use the first two, or the first three, or two or three. So here we go. So now what we do at the erase, you're actually erasing it and showing the background. This checkered background, that tells the program where your character can move. So we want to leave that checkered background. You could use this circle and use white. It won't fix the program. So we have to use this checkered background with the erase. Okay, so now let's design a maze. So this, I found, is an issue with the students. Sometimes they have a hard time designing the maze and figuring this all out. Okay, so there's our maze. It looks pretty good, I think. I normally wouldn't leave a straight track on the bottom like that, but there's a little tricky part right here that might be hard to get through, so that's okay. Okay, now we have our sprite 2. Let's go ahead and throw some code on him. So what we're going to do is we're going to click over from costumes to scripts. Now I should pause the program to say this. Sometimes you'll have a student who knows a little bit about Scratch, and they will think the best way to create the maze is actually through the backdrops. And you could design a backdrop that looks like a maze. However, it's not going to function the same. So for this one, we're going to use the maze as an actual sprite. It's just going to make it easier. So every once in a while, you'll have a student who later on in the program raise a hand and say, mine's not working, and you look and he doesn't have the sprite 2 as the maze. He has a backdrop. So you're going to have to redesign the sprite, or you're going to have to import it or use the new sprite 2 and create it. So it's good to kind of walk around, pay attention to what people are doing, because sometimes people with a little knowledge of Scratch can go off on their own and then make big mistakes in the future. So, all right, let's throw a little bit of code on here. So what we're going to do is the events. When the green flag is clicked, our default start button, we're going to go to motion blocks, and we're going to go to, we're going to type in 0, 0, and we'll hit the green button. That's going to center our maze. Okay, so right here our maze is centered, and you can kind of see our cat's clipping it a little bit, so we're going to have to move him up a little bit. We'll figure out all that later, so don't worry about that too much right now. But so we have our code right there. Now let's make one final sprite. Let's do import a sprite down here. So we need a goal. So how about for this one, we're going to do bananas. Now one caveat, I will go back and show you this again. On the sprites menu down here, the first button is choose a sprite from the library. You click that. You're going to have a bunch of sprites to choose from. This part is a giant time waster. Students can really waste some time. So I recommend picking your sprite quickly, recommending bananas or cake, giving them one to identify, and moving on. Otherwise, they will spend all their time looking at the different pictures and imagining what could be instead of actually building anything. So okay, we have our sprite, we drag them up here. Let's give them some code. So we're already on the scripts page. We're going to go to events. When the green flag is clicked, our start button, we're going to go to motion blocks in our blocks palette, and we're going to go find go to X, Y coordinates, and let's type in, here's what you can do. You can see my mouse over here on the staging area. You can see it says, I kind of want them right there, 222 for X and 167 for Y. So let's type in 222 and 167. Let's hit start. Oh, that's good. He's where we want him to be. He's a little big though, so let's shrink him. We're going to go to looks, set size to, how about 25%? Oh, let's click in there, 25%. Let's try it. Cool. Maybe we can make him a little bit bigger, do 30%. Excellent. Okay, now the cat's going to go through the maze for the bananas. So right now with our program, this is it. We have nothing attached to the cat. The cat's not doing anything. If you were to run this program, let's run it. Nothing is going to happen. You have your bananas, you have your maze, and you have your cat. And our code that we typed in is working. The cat is here, he's 30%. The maze is centered itself right here, and the bananas are staying over here at 25 or 30%. So we've actually written a code, we've run a program, it's just a boring program. We haven't asked it to do anything yet. So now we are going to start asking the program to do something. Okay, so let's go back to the cat sprite, and this is where all our code's going to happen. Now, let's start with a loop. So to create this program, what we want the cat to do, we're going to give him a big chunk of code, and it's going to tell him to go through this maze, and if he touches the sides, to go back to the beginning. And if he gets to the end, then you win. So what we need is a big loop, because we want this to go on forever. When we drag him and we get him halfway, we don't want the program to forget what it's doing, so we need a forever loop, because as he goes to the program needs to keep reminding itself that, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. You can't get to a part, if you're not specific with the program, it will forget. It will get to a part and say, well, you didn't tell me to keep going there. That's how the computer thinks. So what we're going to do is find a forever block in the control panel here, forever. That's a forever loop. So that tells whatever's inside this to happen forever, which is what we want the program to do. Now the first thing we want is to make sure this cat stays put over here at the beginning of the program. So we're going to go to motion, and we're going to go the same block we used before, go to, and this looks good, minus 210 and 158. So right here, that's about where he is. So if your cat or your sprite is already in an area and you go to click the block, sometimes Scratch is helpful in giving you the coordinates that already exist, so you don't have to type in new ones like we did for the banana. So we'll keep those there. Those look good. All right, and next, what we're gonna do, we're gonna have him wait. We're gonna have him sit over there and wait until something happens. And what's that something that's gonna happen? It's gonna be, we're gonna make him wait until he touches our mouse pointer. So we're gonna find in the control panel a block called wait until. Not wait 1 second, wait until. We're going to drag it up here and then wait until something happens. So we're going to go to sensing. We're going to go touching mouse pointer. So our cat is going to wait until he's touching the mouse pointer. But then what happens when he's touching the mouse pointer? So that is when we need another loop. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a repeat until loop, because we want our cat to continue touching the mouse until something happens. And that something that happens is going to be touching the wall. That's going to end the game or getting the bananas, which is winning. So instead of just a forever, we're going to use repeat until. Okay, so repeat until, sensing, back to sensing block, touching mouse pointer. We're going to hit this and go touching sprite 2. Our sprite 2 is the maze. So now, here's our program. Wait until touching mouse pointer. So when he's touching the mouse pointer, he's going to go with you, and then repeat it until he's touching the wall. We have to tell him when he's touching the wall that he needs to stop. He needs to go back to the main place. So we're going to go to mouse pointer. Perfect. All right, now we're going to do another loop, just one more loop. And this one's an if-then loop. So this is a very common concept in computer programming. These are our 3 most common concepts probably in computer programming. A simple loop forever, a repeat until loop, and an if-then loop. So this tells the game to do something, and if another condition is met, then. So what the if-then in this case is going to be, if he's going through the maze and he hits the bananas, then end the game. So very simple. So we're going to do if-then. And we're going to go back to sensing. So if he's touching the cake, or bananas, sorry. If he's touching the bananas, then we want to end the game. So we're going to go to control, and we're going to go drag this over here, stop, and we're going to type in all other scripts in this sprite. Okay, so that could end your game right there. What we're going to do is one more block. We're going to go to events and hit broadcast. And in broadcast, we're going to do a new message. We're going to type in well done. We're not going to use this, but it's good to have this in here. That way, if you wanted to add some messages or game over or something, you could do that later on. So we're going to hit OK. So broadcast well done. So that tells it when the game ends to broadcast well done. That's not going to tell you well done on the screen. You can use that by saying the looks button or displaying a message. Broadcast just tells the game the message well done. Again, we're not going to use this, but it's good practice to put this in. And then control panel again. One more stop. Stop this script. Okay, and that'll end our game. So here we go. Let's do it. Let's give it a try. What I'm going to do is cheat a little bit. I'm going to move the mouse down to 10%. There we go. That way I only have to run through this once. All right, so our program's done. Let's test it. Okay. Here we go. All right, I don't even have to click him. I just move the mouse on him, and now he follows the mouse around. So now he goes to the maze. I'm going to hit the side. He's going to go right back to the start position. That's what the repeat block was for. So now we'll go back. We'll move him through the maze. I can do this pretty quickly. I have a mouse. Oh, oops. So now part of the fun of this program is having parents involved sometimes. So the students, they can make the program and have the parents do it. There we go, it's done. That's it, the end. Yeah, and you can display a message that says, good job, you did it, or you can create a timer on here. Some of my other programs, I showed you how to create a timer. So you can create a timer so you can have the kids challenge each other, see who does it the quickest. You can also have the students go back and choose a new sprite. Sometimes they like to use the football players or a dragon or something to go through. They can also make the sprite bigger, make it smaller to make it harder. And like I was saying, you can have the students challenge their parents, which is always fun. I try to finish these programs in 30 minutes so that the students can play around for 15 minutes with their programs, and even you go to Scratch in general and play around for another 15 minutes if I'm doing a full hour program. So this was the maze game. We have our 3 sprites. We have scripts for all 3 sprites, and it's a working game. And thank you for joining me.